Hi, everyone, and hi, everyone online, too. It's so nice to be here. I'm already so moved by your community and the stories. So to begin with, I want to know how many of you are caretakers to a child with GM1? Please raise your hand. Okay, now keep your hands up if you felt like you were prepared for this journey. Keep your hands up. And we heard from a doctor earlier, right? 2 doctors. And I'm a therapist with a master's degree in marriage and family therapy. I literally took a class in school called parenting, and it didn't mention any of this. I thought I knew all about discipline, nutrition, communication, and then I became the parent to a child with a disability. So I'm glad you're here. We're all in good company. And for the next few minutes, I'm going to ask you to do something that might feel a little surprising. Although getting to know your community already, I don't think this is going to be hard. I'm going to ask you to think about the hard stuff. I'm going to invite you to open a door to the difficult parts of parenting a child with GM1. So my son Asher has Prader-Willi syndrome. About 1 in 20,000 babies are born with it. So it's more common than GM1, but it's all-encompassing and impacts nearly every part of our life. Do you remember the first time that you heard the diagnosis GM1? I bet you do. For me, with Asher's diagnosis, we were in the hospital on Asher's 3rd day of life. A doctor walked in and said that they suspected he had PWS. He had low tone, difficulty eating, undescended testicles, and a myriad of other challenges that are all textbook for PWS. And what she actually said was, it's often difficult for babies with PWS to eat, but when they get older, it's the opposite. You have to lock your refrigerator and they can eat to the point of death. Excuse me? Are we talking about my precious 3-day-old baby? And in an instant, my world changed. We then rode the NICU roller coaster for about a month, ups and downs, good days and bad days. And then finally, we got to bring our baby home, our 5-pound, fragile, floppy baby. You may have had a similar feeling at one point or another, like, you're letting me take this child home? How am I going to survive? And I felt totally unprepared for this. My husband and I had Asher when we were 26 years old. I had just finished graduate school, I had tons of student loans, and we had just bought our first condo in Chicago. Having a child with this level of need was not in the plan. Asher came home from the NICU and had 3 therapies and usually at least 1 doctor's appointment each week. He came home with an NG feeding tube, and at 5 months, he had surgery to insert his G-tube. And my husband and I made the hard decision for me to forego my career and stay home with my son as a full-time parent. Really, overnight, it felt like I became an OT, a PT, a speech therapist, and a stay-at-home parent. I would log on to social media and see other babies holding their heads up and giggling, eventually crawling and babbling, and I started to feel myself slip away. I began to lose my sense of identity. I had so much anxiety about my son's well-being, and my life felt different from anybody that I know. I saw my friends post pictures of their kids taking their first steps or toddling across the soccer field, and we were focused on trunk strength and growth hormone. I felt isolated and alone. And even though I knew that Asher's delays weren't a reflection of my bad parenting, I often caught myself thinking, if I did more fill in the blank, he'd reach his milestones quicker. I felt like I was never doing enough. I had hopes of nursing my baby and taking him to baby classes at the library. There were so many special moments that we missed out on. I didn't get to hold my baby in the hospital the way other moms did. Even his first outfits were out of my control. The NICU nurses chose them for him. What caused me even more pain, and I know you all can relate to this, was seeing him suffer. I hated having to insert that NG tube when he occasionally pulled it out, or watching multiple nurses hold him down while they drew blood out of his tiny veins. He experienced so much trauma in his short life. These losses and traumas add up, and the feeling we experience as a result of this is grief. As parents of disabled kids, grief is intertwined in everything. I have a niece who's just 3 months older than Asher, and still to this day, it's so hard to see the stark differences between the two of them. I see her playing high school sports, she's talking about her boyfriend and having complex conversations, and Asher functions at the level of about a 5-year-old. I continue to feel that deep ping of grief every time they're together. When Asher was a baby, I needed support. And while I didn't realize it at the time, I now know that I needed someone to tell me I wasn't a bad mom for having these feelings. I looked for reading material on the topic of disability parenting. I know we aren't supposed to judge a book by a cover, but these books just didn't look appealing to me. Some of them were called Special Needs Parenting, From Coping to Thriving, or Better Than Okay, Finding Joy as a Special Needs Parent, or Embracing This Special Life, Learning to Flourish as the Mother of a Child with Special Needs. And I'm sure that these books are wonderful, honestly. But I was looking for a book called Please Save Me, I'm Drowning, or something like that. I felt like it was wrong that I was struggling. I really, really love my son, but this isn't what I envisioned parenthood being like. And I felt like I could never admit that without judgment. The thing with grief is that it's reoccurring. We feel it each time our child should be doing their first, and ours feels different than we imagined. So for parents of little ones here, when does your grief arise? For parents of older kids, what about you? I'm sure this is also highly influenced by when your child was diagnosed with GM1 and what your experiences have been. There's also grief about family planning. While facing a terminal diagnosis in and of itself is beyond heartbreaking, there's also so much more that's taken from us. It can take away our ability to just have another child. Many of us are thrown on an unexpected journey of fertility treatments and crushed dreams of having more children, or even the potential of termination for medical reasons. PWS, very much like GM1, dictates our ability to function as a family. As parents of kids with all-consuming disabilities, we have to be hyper-vigilant of all times. In fact, in order to prepare for this talk, I asked ChatGPT to give me an idea of what a typical day in the life of a parent of a child with GM1 looks like. You guys are handling a lot. I mean, ChatGPT pretty much got out all 24 hours, and those 24 hours were filled. Whether it was caring for your child while they're awake or monitoring them while they're asleep, so much is on your plate as the parent of a child with GM1. It is all-consuming. Parenting has been much harder than I imagined, and I know that all parents would say that. But we've dealt with seizures, surgeries, what feels like a million medications, insurance issues, being misunderstood or ignored. I know just like that, a lot of you have dealt with seizures, devastating regressions, cognitive and physical delays, feeding issues, and maybe even the death of your precious child. It wasn't until I started connecting, I'm sorry, I missed one of my slides. Toxic positivity, this is an important one. Early on, I learned that people tend to feel really uncomfortable when we talk about the hard stuff. I've heard a lot of cliche comments such as, kids are resilient, or he doesn't look disabled, or my personal favorite, God gives special kids to special people. And while I am a firm believer in the power of hope, All I wanted was for someone to sit down with me and acknowledge how hard this all really was. I felt like it was wrong that I was sad or angry. I felt like good parents embraced this journey head on with a smile on their face and became disability warriors for their cause. You've probably seen t-shirts or memes that said good vibes only. It's kind of become the motto of our generation, hasn't it? The truth is, a lot of people are not comfortable talking about the hard stuff, the messy stuff that can't be tied with a bow. But to process all of the trauma and hardship that we all have experienced, we must face our real feelings. The more we try to stuff this stuff down, the bigger it becomes. It is safe to say that all of your bad vibes are welcome here today. You know, even in saying this today, in the back of my mind, I find myself thinking, I hope they know how much I love Asher and that I would do anything for him. Are they judging me because I'm talking about all these hard feelings? The guilt never seems to go away. None of this is fair. But by now, we have all learned that life isn't fair. And maybe you've felt this too. That's why I want to encourage you to talk about the hard stuff. Feel it. Don't be ashamed of it. It doesn't make you a bad parent. In fact, it's normal, it's healthy, and it's okay. It wasn't until I started to connect with other parents of kids with PWS and other parents of kids with disabilities that I felt like I could finally catch my breath. Asher was 2, and I was brave enough to finally attend a PWS meetup. It felt so freeing to connect to other parents who got it. There was no pity, no judgment, no unwanted platitudes, just understanding and honesty. It took me a while, but over time I've permitted myself to voice my feelings about the grief that comes from raising a disabled child. And I've began to realize that so many other people share these feelings. How many of us have been in a group of well-meaning parents who are talking about gifted testing, their children's sports teams, or future planning? Our future planning looks a lot different from most other people's. We all know that pang of grief that comes when we try to downplay the severity of our situation in order to ease someone else's discomfort. It's so refreshing to be with people who truly understand the grief. No explanation needed. I hope you feel the sense of relief today while you are surrounded by people who get it. Somewhere along the way, you may have felt like you lost your sense of self. I want to remind you that you have your own passions, worldviews, and values. You have your own unique life shaped by experiences from your childhood, culture, religion, and all the other factors that take part of your story. The good, the bad, the ugly, everything in between. Parenting a disabled child may very well be your most life-changing experience, but there are many, many other factors that make you who you are. Finding meaning in parenting a disabled child can help you build a bridge from the person you were before your child was born to the person you are now and who you will someday become. This work can lead you to a choice, reinforce a worldview, make a worldview crumble, or light a fire inside of you to create something that makes the world a better place. The question is, who are you? Who is the whole you in light of, not in spite of, your role as the parent of a disabled child? Your parenting experience has no doubt changed you, but your core self, your values, your passions, fears, and joys, it's all there. And it's important that you give yourself permission to be the whole you as you consider your sense of self and where you find meaning in life. I'll never dismiss the hard parts of parenting a disabled child, but with the lowest lows come the highest highs. When you've spent hours, endless hours in physical therapy with your child, watching them muster up all the strength to tackle a milestone is earth-shattering in the best way. Seeing your baby smile, make eye contact, come out of surgery or seizure, these are the moments where we can find real meaning in life. On a larger scale, applying your awareness of disability to your worldview can look like realizing that disability is a normal part of diversity and seeing beauty in all people. This is both simple and revolutionary all at the same time. Being the parent of a disabled child has fundamentally changed the way I view the world. I now understand that all emotions, not just the pleasurable ones, are meant to be a part of life. I now know that the goal is not pleasure. The goal is not perfection. What is the goal, you ask? To be present through all of it. There is so much beauty and value scattered through the experience of parenting a disabled child. We get to companion our child through all of life's ups and downs. Parenting is the hardest job, but parenting a disabled child with compassion, advocacy, vulnerability, and balance, I would argue that that's often the hardest job. We are the keepers of our child's life, often responsible for critical decision-making and caretaking. We don't know how long this journey will last or when it will end. This is a situation that no parent envisions themselves in, but I can do it, and so can you. Scattered amid the joy and grief, somewhere under all the caretaking and responsibility, is you. You are not the same person you were before parenting threw your world upside down. You've changed, but you're in there. You're allowed to have more dimensions to you than the ones that revolve around caretaking. You're allowed to have complex emotions about your parenting experience and not feel like you have to always add the caveat, but I love my child so much, because love and pain can coexist. Brené Brown says, I now see that owning our story and loving ourselves through that process is the bravest thing that we will ever do. I now see that owning our story and loving ourselves through that process is the bravest thing that we will ever do. What does it look like to own your story? For me, it looks like getting on a stage and talking about how hard it is to parent a child with a disability. And I wrote a book on the exact same topic. For you, it might look like setting boundaries, being honest about your family's limitations. It might look like, instead of swallowing your emotion, you allow yourself to cry and call a friend when you feel discouraged. It might look like not acting like everything's okay and not making it your life mission to make everybody else happy. If you share your struggles, maybe those around you will feel safe to do the same. If you talk about the anxiety that comes from wondering if this family photo session will be the last, or if you're wondering if you're making the right call on treatments, knowing that every choice intersects with quality of life and lifespan. By sharing our struggles, we create space for healing and connection. And aren't those the very things that we need as parents? I stand before you today as a parent who continues to process grief, sadness, and anger, yet who now makes more room for hope and acceptance. Those feelings are not mutually exclusive. In fact, the beauty in life is that it's never black and white. We live in the grays, where love and grief, gratitude and despair sit at the same table. Over time, I have learned a hard truth. This world was not designed for people with disabilities. That single sentence could fill an entire session. Policies, buildings, school, even social attitudes So many of them overlook our children and our families. I grieve that reality, but naming it is the first step towards changing it and toward giving ourselves permission to feel the sadness and the anger that follow. I've often heard people say something like, take care of yourself, you owe it to your child. But that rhetoric is part of what makes us feel guilty about having complex emotions about parenting. Our child cannot be our sole motivation for our well-being. You deserve to be fully whole, a person who feels all their emotions without self-judgment, a person who advocates for their child and for themselves. You deserve care, love, and self-compassion. If anything that I shared today resonates with you, I'm so glad that you're here, because together we can continue to hold these conversations about parenting, the conversations that admit the full reality. Parenting a disabled child is life-changing, hard, scary, wonderful, and breathtaking, all at the same time. So let's keep talking. Let's keep creating spaces where every shade of gray is welcome, where grief and joy can coexist, and where our families, not just our children, receive the care and dignity we all deserve. So before we wrap up today, I want to encourage you to take a few minutes to, how much time do I have? Does anyone know?
Plenty of time.
Okay, plenty of time. Okay, great. So I'm going to ask you guys, please don't get annoyed with me, but I'm going to ask you to get into small groups. I'm sorry if this feels uncomfortable. And let's just chat. I want to hear you talk about where you are in this journey. Tell a little bit about your story. And I want us to find connection in vulnerability here. And if you're home and maybe you're not with a group of people, grab a notebook, spend a few minutes journaling, maybe text a friend, look online for some other people maybe that feel the same way. And let's use some time to really connect in our hardship. And because I really fully believe that by talking about the hard stuff, somehow we just feel better. It's this bizarre experience by going into the stuff that's actually causing us so much pain, finding connection, seeing that other people get it. There's actually an opportunity to feel better. So I want us to take sort of the rest of the time today, just get in a small group. Oftentimes when I do this at bigger conferences, I divide people by the age of their children. I don't necessarily think that fits here. I would love for us just to kind of connect with people, maybe different ages and stages. And if you're a bereaved parent, please join in too and share your story as well. So, if you want to get in groups of 4 or 5, whatever feels comfortable, let's just spend some time talking and sharing. So thank you.